Welcome back to Objective 3 in Chapter 4 of Unit 9 in our 4A series. In this objective, we're going to explain the HMI, which is the Human-Machine Interface, and purpose of touchscreen displays, functions, and alarm handling. Now, we keep mentioning this term, human-machine interface. I've referred to it in the previous objective, and indeed we've referred to it in previous chapters and units. So, exactly what is a HMI? A HMI, standing for human-machine interface, is basically an interactive touchscreen so that we as operators can interact with the control loops in the plant. So, for example, we could change set points, monitor process variables, start or stop pieces of equipment that would initiate start and shut down sequences. That in a nutshell is a HMI. It's an interactive touch screen. Now, the one in your textbook that they're using as an example, and the one I refer to is Figure 8 of page 15 in your textbook, this is a turbine control panel. As new operators in our 4th class program, that sort of thing would be hard to contextualize as we don't have a turbine control panel per se in the actual Husky lab. So I'm going to use the example of the BOP screen in the Husky lab that hopefully by now you'll have all put your hands on several times. The example will be a good one and we can still talk about all the same things that are in your textbook. So, looking at this BOP screen, and BOP is yet another acronym that stands for Balance of Plant, you can see what it's showing us here. The screen that we're on here is visualizing the control loops within the plant. And you can see that we have a loop here for deaerator level, another one for low pressure makeup, low pressure vent, feed water pumps, makeup water pump, high header pressure, i.e. steam pressure, and high pressure header vent. So these 7 loops are the main 7 control loops in our plant. There are others, but these are the ones on the BOP panel. The different coloured bars that we can see underneath those headers, these are representative of our process variable, that is where the value is in real time as you are monitoring it. We then have the set point, that is where we would like it to be, and then we have the output. That's the signal that the controller is sending out to bring about the change of process variable back to set point. Now we can also on this screen see at the bottom across the manual and auto buttons, this is a selection of how we wish the loop to run. If it's indicated in red with the words manual on, then we are in manual control, which means as the operator, we dial in the percentage of the output in the controller. So on the one far left, deaerator level, you can see that one is in manual and there is a green box around the output of 20%, meaning that as the operator, we would have dialed that 20% in. If we want it to go up, we dial in a higher percentage. If we want it to go down, we dial in a lower percentage. And that would be manual control. If, however, it is in automatic, then it is going to make the corrections to the output of the controller to bring about the change so that we get up to or down to set point. And we talked about all of this in an earlier chapter with regards to manual, automatic, set points, process variables, etc. So this will be the example that I'm going to use for this little section. So in summary then, what can we do with that? Well, obviously we can change set points, and we can do that in both manual control or automatic control. In automatic control, we simply adjust the set point and the controller will then take care of it. In manual control, we will adjust the controller output and then we will do the change manually. Second, we can monitor process variables, things like temperature, pressure, flow, that sort of stuff. And all of that is going to be in real time. So if we look at the deaerator control panel and it says that the current level is 98 centimeters, that's what it is right now. The set point might be 80, which means then the level control valve would be pinched right close to bring that level down back to set point. So we're able to monitor all of these different things. We're also able to start and stop sequences. Most notably from that panel in the Husky Lab, we are able to stop or start the D-type boiler, for example. We're also able to view our limits, and these are things called permissives and interlocks that the boiler must achieve in order to actually run. The classic example for a permissive would be water level. If there was no water in the boiler, when you press start, it will not start, because having a sufficient water level to run a boiler is a permissive. And there are lots of these. Well, we're actually able to open up a screen on that page so we can see exactly what those limits are. We can also view the run status, for example, of our D-type boiler to see whereabouts in the startup or shutdown sequence it is, or if it's just in main fire and running normally. We can also navigate to different pages. For example, we can look at pages related to the D-type boiler only, or we can look at the page that has the level control, or I should say the level value of the fuel oil tank and the deaerator upon it. We can do hard and soft resets. A hard reset is where we physically have to depress a button. A soft reset would be on the actual touch screen where we just tap the reset button. Some alarms require soft resets, other alarms are going to require hard resets. And then we're also able to view alarm history, that is, to see what alarms are currently active or have occurred in the past, and we're also able to do a limited amount of trending. And that is to see how things have been moving against time. Have they been trending up, down, or have they been in a steady state? And so the saying goes, trend is your friend. It's a very powerful tool, especially when we look at doing troubleshooting. Now, if they're the kind of things that you can do with that sort of panel, it obviously begs the question, well, what can't you do with it? And the answer to that is quite a lot. As operators, we are not able to reconfigure any input or output devices. Now, what are input or output devices? Well, an input device, for example, might be a level transmitter for the D-type boiler. The output device could be the the level control valve to the D-type boiler. Well, as operators, we're not able to reconfigure those, meaning they are set up the way the instrument tech sets them up. We are not qualified, nor are we competent to go making changes like that. So we are locked out of doing things like that. In a similar note, we are also not able to change sequences of operation. For example, we couldn't adjust it so that the pre-purge is done after we light the boiler off. Well, that would be ridiculous, wouldn't it? You can't adjust any sort of sequence like that. Again, we are not competent or qualified to do so. We also are not allowed to alter any communication protocols within this device, meaning if it's going on 4 to 20 milliamp, that's how it's going to stay. We can't change it to 2 to 10 volts or change it to pneumatic or adjust any sort of signals like that. So nothing like that we are able to change. We are also not able to develop different operating modes. The only modes that we have to work within are automatic mode and manual mode. Now, that also begs the question, well, what other kind of modes are there? Well, there are other modes where you can do things like step, and that is where you step through various sequences and hold them at different points. They'll do this, for example, for things like commissioning. Well, we're not allowed to do that under normal time or normal operations. So different operating modes we're not able to just access. And then lastly, sort of an obvious statement, we're also not able to control equipment to which that control panel is not connected to. And in the Husky Lab, of course, the classic example is that we have no control over the fire tube boiler from that BOP panel. So you can't expect to control things that are not configured or connected to our HMI. Alright, now of course there are additional controls with HMI panels, and if you take a look below our BOP screen in the Husky Lab, you're confronted here with a series of buttons and lights. So our additional control here are plant ESD switch, which of course is in the normally open position. When you then smash it closed, you are then going to break the circuit and the plant will shut down. We also have a hard reset button here, which is indicated on screen as a push to reset or system lockout button. Hard resets can be pressed to clear the existing limits, and then we can see if they are cleared, and then we can go ahead and begin the sequence by pressing the start button. What sequence do I refer to? The starting of the D-type boiler. We also, of course, here have a stop button, but hopefully you recall that you should only be stopping the boiler once it's in minimum fire. So if it's not in minimum fire, walk it down to minimum fire, then press the stop button. We also have a fan controller. The fan controller here is bottom right, labelled as the combustion blower, and we can either have the fan in hand, off, or auto. For normal operation, it should always be left in auto, and then it becomes part of the controller. If we have it in off, it's never going to run, or if we have it in hand, we could run the fan manually, for example. We also have a fuel selector switch to determine whether we're going to light off on gas, the way it normally would be, or we could turn it to the right when we select fuel oil, or fuel oil number 2, to run it that way. And then lastly, you can also see we have a selection of indicator lights to give us an indication of status, i.e. are things clear, meaning have the interlocks been completed, are the limits complete, do we have power to the actual panel. All of these things are going to give us information as to how our plant is working. Okay, so that wraps up a very short Objective 3 to complete this Chapter 4 here. So as a quick review of this chapter, let's just go through a few multiple choice questions that would be something similar to what you might see on a unit test or a final exam. So for the first one, large and more complicated PLCs are what? Are they monolithic, megalithic, modular, two-position, or automatic? And by all means, pause the video here and have a go at it yourself. Now, after you have a think about this, hopefully you can get this down to at least one of two options. We can have either monolithic or modular. So hopefully you're thinking the answer is either A or C. So which one do you think? Let's take a look. It is modular. The modular PLC is the larger ones, the ones that we are able to add input-output modules to or take away input-output modules from. We're even able to change the ladder logic or the sequencing logic of them. These are the big ones that can be reconfigured. The monolithic ones, these are the ones for things like packaged pieces of equipment that we are not able to alter. Next question. PLCs accept something and something inputs. Is that voltage and current, analog and automatic, analog and discrete, discrete and digital, or modular and stepped? Well, hopefully you're thinking here about I/O cards. That is the input and output cards with regards to the PLC of a diagram that I showed you earlier. So with regards to inputs that this question is talking about, what kind of type of general types of inputs can a PLC accept? I would hope you came up with the answer of analog and discrete. Analog are basically varying signals, whether they be pressure signals, as in kPa, or whether they be things like voltage or current signals, and they can vary anywhere from a minimum and a maximum value. Then the other type is a discrete value. These are digital values basically, and a discrete value is either basically a 1 or a 0. It's on or it's off. It's open or it's closed, it's up or it's down, etc. So PLCs basically can accept either or, varying values, analog, or discrete values, 2 states only. The next one, for one of the following is not in a 4-step PLC operating scan. Well, hopefully you recall earlier in the last objective that we quickly reviewed the operating scan of a PLC. Well, one of those is not part of it. So which one is it? Is it the input scan, the output scan, the logic scan, the housekeeping scan, or is it the program scan. This is referring to the diagram on page 6 of your objective 2 in this chapter, and it's figure 3 that I am referring to. The odd one out here is the logic scan. The logic scan is basically the same as the program scan, and the program scan is where it looks at the set of instructions and is it doing the sequence in order. Or for example, once it achieves a certain input, what will be the generated output? So a logic scan and a program scan are somewhat similar, but the term should be program scan, not logic scan. So that is the correct answer for this one, answer C. Okay, last one here. A bit of an easy one, this one, I hope. What does HMI stand for? Does it stand for human-machine interaction? Is it human-machine interface? Is it hazard mode information? High matched integral? Or is it a human-machine information? Well, we just got through talking about these, and we've also mentioned it quite a few times already, so hopefully this is the easy one. A HMI is a human-machine interface. Please note that one, because questions as easy as this I call the low-hanging fruit, and these are the ones you have to be picking off very easily because they're pretty much gimmies. Okay, so that brings a close here then to our chapter, and that is the end of chapter 4. A fairly condensed chapter there, talking about PLCs. So give this a good review, and then when you're ready, come back and see me for chapter 5, where we'll talk about electronic control systems and computer applications. There are 3 objectives to get through in the next chapter, so when you're ready, looking forward to seeing you back for that one soon. Take care, all the best, see you back real soon.